on a young girl's eyes. Wide. Terrified. Her voice trembles. He tied a red scarf on my head and said, "You belong to him now." I was 12. The cows were still mooing behind me. But destiny was watching. They said I was just a girl. The village of Amaife was not a place where girls had dreams, only duties. 12-year-old Sarah sat at the edge of the compound, peeling cassava, her bare feet dusty from the red sand. Her fingers were sore, but her eyes, those deep, questioning eyes, kept darting to the sky, as if searching for something beyond the clouds. Maybe freedom. Maybe hope. Maybe both. Her younger brother Tochi ran past her, playing with a tire and a stick. He wasn't asked to fetch water. He wasn't asked to grind pepper. He was a boy. And that alone was enough. Inside the mud house, her stepmother's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Sarah, are you still there peeling cassava like a goat? Don't you know your time is running out?" Sarah paused, confused. Running out, for what? Later that night, her father, Joe, returned from the bush with a strange glow in his eyes. He was a tall, once handsome man, now worn out by life and bitterness. But this night, he was smiling. And that was dangerous. He sat by the fire and called her name. "Sarah. Kneel down." She obeyed. "A man came to see me. His name is Ijele. He wants to marry you." Sarah's heart dropped. "But I'm just 12, she whispered. "Exactly," Joe said. "Before you grow stubborn." He's offering 5 cows. That's 5 more than you're worth just sitting here. He is a big man. He has land. And he's willing to marry you immediately. Silence. Her stepmother smiled from the corner. She had never liked Sarah, too quiet, too pretty, too much like the first wife who died giving birth to her. "You should be thanking your stars," she spat. "Do you know how many girls your age are already mothers?" Sarah tried to speak. Her lips moved, but no words came. "They were selling me 4 cows. Like meat in the market." That night, as she lay on the mat, she whispered to herself under the moonlight. "Mama, if your spirit can hear me, don't let them do this to me. Please." But the moon said nothing. The next morning, the compound was filled with sounds, not of laughter, but of movement. Women sweeping. Men setting up chairs. A goat tied to the mango tree. And 5 cows, big and restless, mooing beside a new rope fence. Sarah wore a wrapper twice her size and sat quietly while an old woman tied a red scarf on her head. "This is tradition," the woman muttered. "You are now a wife?" Her eyes couldn't stop leaking tears. She looked at her father, he couldn't meet her gaze. She looked at Ijele, a man in his late 40s with teeth stained from chewing cola. He smiled like he had just won a prize. "My new wife is quiet. I like that." Then she looked at the cows. And she hated them. 5 cows. That's what my life is worth. As the drums began to play and the villagers danced, Sarah stood there, still, frozen in time. But in that moment, destiny watched quietly, waiting for the right time to roll. The journey to Ijele's compound was long and quiet. Sarah sat behind him on his motorcycle, her arms trembling around his waist. The wind blew past her face, but it didn't dry her tears. Her father had given her away like a broken bicycle. She didn't even get to pack her clothes herself. Her stepmother folded everything in silence and handed her the nylon bag, her life, in a torn black polythene. Ijele's compound stood at the edge of the village, a lonely house with grey walls and a crooked zinc roof that flapped when the wind blew too hard. There were no children running around. No flowers. No signs of joy. Only silence. And chickens. Sarah stood outside, hugging her bag as Ijele unlocked the rusted gate. He turned to her and grinned. "You'd get used to the quiet. No one would disturb us here." Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of old firewood and bitter leaf. The room had only a mattress, a wooden chair, and a kerosene lantern. That was where she would sleep. That was now her home. No bed for her. No greetings from neighbors. No welcome song. At night, when the wind howled and owls cried, Sarah curled herself in the corner of the room and prayed her body would disappear. But Ijele would come in, chewing cola, his teeth red like blood, his hands rough like tree bark. A wife must learn to serve, he whispered. And then the silence would break, with pain. For weeks, Sarah said nothing. She washed. She cooked. She cried in the bathroom, muffling the sound with her wrapper. One morning, as she was fetching water from the stream, an old woman named Mama Chinya approached her. "You are Joa's daughter," she said, peering at her closely. "I know your mother. You look like her. Why are you walking like your legs are not yours?" Sarah looked away. "Did he marry you or capture you?" Tears dropped from Sarah's eyes. The old woman sighed and touched her shoulder. "Don't die inside. I see what others pretend not to see. If you ever need to talk, come to me." Sarah said nothing. But her eyes held onto those words like a rope. That night, as Ijele snored loudly in his sleep, Sarah sat by the window and whispered to the moon again. "Mama, if you are somewhere, please, send me a sign. Just one sign." But the moon stayed quiet again. Still, she looked up, hoping, waiting. And the stars blinked like tiny promises. 3 months passed. Sarah's body began to change. She stopped bleeding. Her stomach felt heavier. And her emotions danced like water in a pot. At first, she didn't understand. Until the morning she vomited beside the pit latrine and almost fainted. "You're not sick," Mama Chinya said gently. "You are carrying a child." Sarah blinked. "A child? But I'm still a child myself." She dropped to her knees, hands covering her face. "How can I be a mother when no one mothered me?" Mama Chinya held her, brushing her back gently. "That is why you must survive. For this baby. For yourself." But Ijele wasn't pleased when he found out. He shouted, "Why now? You think I'm ready for a child? You should have told me earlier." Sarah looked at him, confused. "You were the one who? Slap." Her face turned with the force. She tasted blood. "You will not talk back to me. You are my wife?" She ran to the backyard and cried till the sun left the sky. That night, she refused to cook. She refused to clean. She simply sat, holding her belly. 2 days later, a stranger came to the compound. A young man in his early 20s. Light-skinned. Tall. Gentle eyes. His name was Michael, Ijele's younger cousin from the city. He had come to stay for a week to learn about village life. He was shocked when he saw Sarah. "You're his wife. But you look like my younger sister." Sarah only nodded. Michael watched her, how she walked slowly, how her eyes never stayed up, how she flinched when Ijele spoke. That night, he confronted Ijele. "Brother, this girl is a child. You shouldn't have married her. She's my wife, not yours." Ijele backed. "But look at her. She's broken. And so what? She brings me water and peace. That's all I need." Michael was disgusted. But Sarah saw something that night. When Michael looked at her, he didn't see a servant. Or a body. He saw a human being. That night, as she lay on her mat beside the kitchen, she whispered again. "Mama, this Michael, he looked at me like I mattered. If there is a way out of this, let it start now." And far away in the sky, a breeze blew softly through the mango trees. Like a whisper in the wind. The rain had just stopped. The red earth of Amaife was wet and soft, and frogs sang in the distance. Sarah crouched near the back of the kitchen, scrubbing the soot-covered pot, her belly now showing slightly under her wrapper. Michael watched her from the veranda, his arms crossed. "Have you ever been to school?" he asked. Sarah shook her head. "Do you want to?" She nodded slowly, not sure why she trusted him, but something about his voice felt safe. That evening, as Ijele left for the next village to attend a wine-sharing ceremony, Michael sat beside Sarah with a small book in his hand. "This is the alphabet. A, B, C." Sarah stared at the letters like they were keys to a world she had never been allowed to enter. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Michael didn't answer immediately. Then he whispered, "Because you remind me of my sister, Chioma. She died from childbirth at 13. Nobody helped her. I couldn't save her. But maybe I can help you." Sarah's eyes burned with tears. For the first time in her life, she saw what care felt like. But care was not safety. That night, Ijele returned, smelling of palm wine, and saw the two of them sitting too close. "So this is what you do when I'm not around?" He pounced. He didn't wait to ask questions. He didn't listen to Michael's explanation. He dragged Sarah by the hair, yelling curses. "You stupid girl. You want to disgrace me in my own house." He locked her in the bathroom. Without food. Without water. Michael knocked and begged. "Brother, please, she's pregnant. Let her out." Ijele punched the wall. "Get out of my house before I break your head too." The next morning, Sarah knew she had to leave or die. She waited until everyone slept. She tiptoed out, no shoes, no bag, just a small cloth tied around her waist. The gate creaked. The wind howled. The sky watched. She walked for hours. Through bush paths. Through silent roads. Her feet bleeding. Her stomach cramping. Until she collapsed in front of a small Catholic church on the other side of the village. She woke up to the sound of a bell. And the voice of an old priest praying beside her. "You're safe now," he said. His name was Father Dominic, a kind, gray-bearded priest who had served in Amaife for over 30 years. He had seen girls like her. Too many. Too young. Too broken. He brought her food, water, a wrapper, and most of all, peace. For the first time in many months, Sarah slept without fear. She told him everything, Joe. The 5 cows. Ijele. The child growing inside her. The slaps. The pain. Father Dominic wept. "They call it marriage," he whispered. "But it's slavery. Legalized pain." He reported the case to the village elders, but Ijele denied everything. Joe refused to speak. She ran on her own, Joe claimed. Ungrateful child. But the truth was spreading. One day, Mama Chinya came to visit the church. She brought Sarah a small purse filled with herbs and salt. "I know I can't change your pain," she said. "But I can help you deliver that baby alive. I will help you, my daughter." Sarah cried in her arms. The child was growing. And so was her courage. Meanwhile, Michael returned to the city, angry, disappointed, and determined. He wrote an article for a local women's rights NGO. She was 12, sold for 5 cows. The article went viral on social media. And something unexpected happened. A woman named Grace read it. A powerful, influential lawyer in Lagos who grew up in Amaife but left years ago after facing a similar fate. She reached out to Father Dominic immediately. "I want to meet this girl. I think I know how to help her." The car that arrived at the parish the next Sunday was unlike anything the villagers had seen. Black. Shiny. Air-conditioned. When the door opened, a woman in her 40s stepped out. Elegant. Fierce. And commanding. Her name was Barrister Grace Oko. She wore a silver brooch in the shape of a lioness. Sarah watched her from the church window, nervous. "That's her," Father Dominic said, "Don't be afraid." Grace walked in. Saturday. Looked into Sarah's eyes. Then said gently, "I was once you. My father sold me to a widower for 2 bags of rice and a bicycle." Sarah's eyes widened. "I ran away at 15. I found someone who helped me. I studied. I fought. Now I help others." She opened her purse, pulled out a card. "I'm taking you with me. You go to a home where you'll be protected, where you can raise your baby safely, where you go to school." Sarah blinked, speechless. "But what about Ikena? My father?" Grace smiled. "Let the Lord deal with them. This time, they won't escape." That night, as Sarah sat in the back seat of the car, the village slowly disappearing behind her, she held her belly and whispered, "Mama, is this what it means when destiny turns around?" The wind blew gently. And for the first time, it didn't feel like sorrow. It felt like a beginning. Sarah stepped out of the car like someone entering another planet. The city was loud. Cars honked. Buildings reached the sky. Nobody knew her name. Yet inside Grace's compound, peace lived. Tall trees lined the walkway. There were flowers. A white dog named Max. And for the first time in years, Sarah saw her reflection in a clean mirror. "You're safe here," Grace said. "But more than that, you belong here." She was taken to Hope Shelter, a private home for underage girls who had been victims of child marriage and abuse. Each girl had her own bed, meals, clothes, and a small blue diary. "Write your pain. No one will read it unless you ask," said Auntie Mercy, the coordinator. Sarah touched the diary like it was gold. That night, she opened it and wrote, "My name is Sarah. I was sold for 5 cows. But destiny turned around. I don't know what tomorrow holds. But for now, I feel like I'm breathing again." She placed the diary under her pillow and slept dreamlessly. 3 weeks later, her water broke. It was early morning. She screamed. Nurses rushed in. The pain was thunder. But Sarah refused to give up. "Breathe. Push. One more," a nurse yelled. Then silence. Then a cry. A baby boy. Tiny. Wrinkled. Alive. Sarah held him, her arms shaking. "I will call him Chibik," she whispered. "Because God is my strength." The baby stared at her and blinked. And just like that, a broken girl became a mother. 2 months passed. Sarah learned how to feed Chibik, how to sterilize bottles, how to smile again. Then one morning, Grace walked in with someone behind her. "There's someone who wants to see you," she said. "He's the reason I found you." Sarah turned and froze. "Michael." He smiled. A little older. Sharper. Still gentle. "I wrote the article about you," he said, stepping forward. Sarah blinked. "You?" I couldn't stay silent. I had to do something. He sat beside her. "You look better. Stronger." "Because I'm finally free," she said softly. There was a long pause. Then Michael pulled out an old photograph from his wallet. This is my mother. Her name was Lavina. She lived in Amaife. She died 5 years ago. She told me before she passed that my father was a man named Joe. Sarah's heart jumped. "Joel is my father." Michael dropped the photo. Silence. Their eyes met. Time froze. "We are siblings," Sarah whispered. Michael nodded slowly. "Half, but yes." Sarah backed away. Confused. Hurt. Overwhelmed. "The man who sold me also abandoned you." Michael stood still, eyes wet. "He ran from me and sold you. But maybe we were meant to meet. To break the curse. Tears ran down Sarah's face. You're not just my savior. You're my brother. And in that room, beside baby Chibik, the truth broke them and began to heal them. Amaife was buzzing again. Joel sat at the beer parlor, holding a rumpled newspaper someone had brought from the city. Right there on the second page was the headline. She was 12, sold for 5 cows, now she fights back. With a photo of Sarah and her newborn baby. Joel's mouth tightened. People were whispering, calling him a monster, pointing fingers. Even his drinking friends now avoided his table. She disgraced me in the city, he muttered. His new wife, a younger woman named Gozi, laughed carelessly. If that baby is alive and rich people are now helping her, maybe we can take the child back. Raise him as ours. Or sell him again to a big man who wants children. Joel's eyes narrowed. That's not a bad idea. The next week, Joel boarded a bus to Lagos. Carrying nothing but a torn bag, lies in his mouth, and a dangerous plan in his heart. He arrived at Hope Shelter, pretending to be a repentant father. Please. I just want to see my daughter and my grandson, he said, tears in his eyes. I was a foolish man. I've changed. The guards refused. Grace was alerted. But Joel was persistent. He even knelt outside the gate, crying and quoting scriptures. Inside, Sarah heard about it. Her hands trembled. He's here. Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. Don't believe him. He wants something. Sarah nodded, but deep down, her heart was shaking. That night, a strange figure tried to sneak into the shelter compound. He was caught on CCTV. Grace called the police. Joel was arrested with a note in his pocket. Meet me at Ogonji Market. The baby is ready. He had written it for the man he planned to sell Chibik to. The case exploded online. More news articles followed. Grace prepared a court case. And for the first time, Joel stood in the dock. The same man who once judged Sarah now stood before real judgment. Sarah, in court, holding her baby, looked him in the eye and said, "You sold me for cows. Now you've lost me forever." Joel collapsed in tears. But it was too late. The courtroom was silent. Fans spun lazily above, the judge's glasses sitting low on his nose. Sarah sat in the witness box, baby Chibik asleep in her arms. Michael sat beside her, his hands clenched. Joel stood at the defendant's corner, his head low. "You are accused of selling your underage daughter to a man for 5 cows, the judge said. "You are also accused of conspiring to kidnap her child and sell him for profit. How do you plead?" Joel swallowed. "Not guilty," he mumbled. Gasps filled the room. Grace stood sharply. "We have written confessions, video footage of his attempt to enter the shelter compound, and evidence of a scheduled meeting to sell the child. We also have witnesses." Joel's voice rose in panic. "She's my daughter. I can't sell what belongs to me." "Exactly," Grace said coldly. "You treated her like property, not a person." After 3 days of testimony, tears, and evidence, the judgment was passed. "Mr. Joel," the judge said, "you have shown no remorse. You are hereby sentenced to 15 years in prison without parole." Joel collapsed to the floor, screaming, "Sarah, my child, forgive me." She stood, holding Chibik tightly. "I forgive you," she whispered. "But I never forget." The court erupted in claps. Michael held her hand. The curse was breaking. 1 month after the trial, Sarah received an envelope. It was from a foundation in Canada, affiliated with Grace's law firm. "Dear Miss Sarah," it read, "we are inspired by your story of survival and strength. We are offering you a full scholarship to study in Canada, housing, childcare, and education covered, to pursue law, social work, or any course of your choice. Sarah stared at the letter, heart racing. Is this real? She asked Grace, her voice barely a whisper. Yes, Grace smiled. Destiny is not just turning around, it's opening doors. Sarah cried in silence. She walked into Chibik's room, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "You will grow up free, my son. You will never know chains." The shelter organized a send-forth event for her. Girls she had once slept beside now hugged her with pride. Auntie Mercy said, "You came here as a victim. You're living as a light." At the airport, she held baby Chibik and looked out at the tarmac. Michael, now volunteering with the NGO, hugged her tight. "You've made us proud," he said. "We both made it," Sarah replied. And then, she boarded the plane a girl once sold for cows, now flying toward a future money could never buy. Months passed. Sarah settled in Canada. Snow replaced red sand. Books replaced bruises. She studied social work, determined to help girls like herself find their voices. Chibik grew healthy, happy, always holding his mother's thumb when he slept. One day, as she walked into the post office in her new town, she received a parcel. No return address. Just a crumpled brown envelope. Inside was a letter. She opened it with shaking hands. "Dear Sarah, I know I do not deserve your eyes, let alone your forgiveness. I write this from prison. I was arrested 2 months ago after being reported by 2 other girls. I confessed everything. I have lost everything, my house, my family, even my name. But I carry your voice in my head every night, the scream I ignored, the silence I forced. If you can, pray for me. Ijele." Sarah stood frozen. For a long time, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she folded the letter, placed it inside her diary, and whispered, "I won't pray for you, Ijele. But I live free, and that will be your punishment." She closed her diary, held her son, and smiled. Because freedom wasn't just a location. It was becoming someone your abuser could never control again. It was a cold evening in Toronto. Sarah stood backstage, heart pounding, as her name was called. Please welcome Miss Sarah Joel, survivor, advocate, and founder of From Chains to Wings. Applause filled the hall. Spotlights hit her face. She stepped forward, wearing a sky blue dress, natural hair in a bun, baby Chibik in the arms of her Canadian host mother at the front row. Sarah took a breath, then spoke. "I was 12 when I was sold for 5 cows. I thought my life was over. But pain didn't kill me, it prepared me." Gasps. Silent tears in the crowd. To every girl out there who's been silenced, you are not your scars. Your past is not your identity. You can rise. The crowd stood up, a standing ovation. That night, the internet exploded with clips of her speech. She trended worldwide. Major media houses reached out. And Grace, watching the video back in Nigeria, wiped her eyes. "She's not just healing," she whispered. "She's changing the world." It had been almost a year in Canada. Sarah had started a small initiative, helping immigrant girls from war zones and poor African backgrounds who had faced abuse. She visited shelters, organized workshops, gave interviews. One chilly afternoon, while taking Chibik for a walk near a park, she saw a man sitting on a bench, shoulders slumped, face sunken, wearing old boots. Her eyes narrowed. Something familiar. As she walked past, the man looked up. Their eyes met. Her legs froze. Michael. But it wasn't. It was Ikena's brother, Obina, the one who had also abused her that dark night when Ikena traveled. "Sarah," he croaked, standing. "Please. I saw your video. I came here illegally. I couldn't stay in Nigeria. Everyone knows what we did. I'm a ghost there. I'm homeless here." She backed away. Chibik began to cry. Don't touch me, she warned. Obinna knelt in the snow. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And I'm proud of you. You became what none of us could kill. Sarah stood there, trembling. Flashbacks hit her like wind. The bathroom. His shadow. Her silence. She turned and walked away. Obinna didn't follow. And that was the first time an abuser had obeyed her silence. Months passed. Sarah's face appeared on billboards. She was invited to speak at the United Nations Conference for Women and Girls. At the event, she met people who had survived war, trafficking, child marriage, abuse, and rape. But none of their stories felt more painful than the one she received one morning. In a sealed envelope from Nigeria. She opened it. Dear Sarah, my name is Chinyere. I am 14. My uncle wants to marry me off to a blind old man because my parents are dead. I read about you. Please, help me. I don't want to die. Sarah stared at the letter. Something in her chest broke again, but this time, it wasn't pain. It was fire. She picked up her phone. Called Grace. We need to go back. Back where? To Nigeria. There's another Sarah. And she's calling. Sarah stands at her office window, looking at the African sun on her laptop screen. She holds her son and whispers, "Let's go and break another chain." The moment Sarah stepped off the plane in Lagos, the heat hit her like a memory. She hadn't touched Nigerian soil in over a year. But the red dust under her feet still remembered her. The scars on her wrist still burned with the past. But this time, she wasn't alone. Grace met her at the airport, waiting with a quiet smile. "Are you ready?" she asked. "I'm not," Sarah whispered. "But the girls waiting for me, they don't have time for fear." They drove to Anambra State in an unmarked car. No press. No noise. Just a mission. Sarah wore a headscarf and dark shades. She had learned the art of silence. This wasn't about fame anymore. It was war. They arrived at Odegu village, where little Chinyere lived, the 14-year-old girl who wrote that letter. The air there was heavy. Men stared suspiciously. Women kept their heads down. And Sarah knew instantly. This village has secrets. They met Chinyere behind her late father's hut, hiding, barefoot, hugging her knees. Sarah crouched gently. "My name is Sarah. You don't know me, but I know your fear." Chinyere looked up, eyes swollen. "They want to give me to a man with no teeth. He already has 4 wives. I'm just a child." Sarah pulled her close. "You're not property. You're purpose." Grace took Chinyere's hand. "Let's go. No one is marrying you off. Not on our watch." But as they stood to leave, 3 men stepped out of the bush. Armed. "Where are you going with her?" one barked. "This girl belongs to the council. She was promised." Grace stepped forward. "She is a minor. She belongs to no one but the state. We know who you are. Sarah. The girl who exposed the elders in Amaife. Go back to your Canada." Sarah's voice was calm, but loud. "Tell your elders, the girl they sold for cows has come back to burn their market." Back in Lagos, Sarah and Grace launched an underground investigation into villages where child marriage still thrived under silence and culture. And what they discovered shook them. A secret list of over 100 girls between ages 10 to 16 being prearranged for early marriage across Anambra, Ebonyi, and Kogi. All hidden under traditional bride price deals, many involving money, cows, or parcels of land. Sarah printed the list and posted it anonymously on social media, with the caption, "This is not culture. This is crime." The post exploded. Nigerian authorities were embarrassed. The Ministry of Women Affairs was forced to respond. The National Human Rights Commission called for action. But someone was angry. Very angry. That night, a message came to Sarah's phone. Your return is shaking too many tables. If you don't leave Nigeria within 7 days, you'll disappear like the rest. Michael, still in Canada but in daily contact with her, begged. Come back. Please. This is not your war alone. But Sarah replied. I've already died once, Michael. I refuse to live in fear again. Sarah and Grace arranged to relocate Chinya and 10 other rescued girls to a secure home in Abuja. Each girl had a story, a scar, a silence. But Sarah knew time was running out. Someone powerful was trying to silence her. One afternoon, as she stepped into her car, the driver noticed something odd. Wires under the seat. A bomb. They evacuated just in time. The attempt on her life made headlines. Sarah Joel, survivor turned activist targeted in failed assassination. The nation erupted. Protests began. Lawmakers were forced to call a Senate hearing on child marriage. And at that hearing, Sarah appeared. Head high. Red scarf on her head, the same kind they once tied on her at 12. She stood before the microphones and said, I was once silent. I was once old. But today I speak. Not just for myself, but for every girl in this land who has been reduced to goats, land, cows, or coins. I am not the only voice. I am just the first scream. And we will not stop. That night, she sat in her hotel room and wrote her final diary entry. If I don't make it back, tell my son that I didn't die fighting monsters. I died becoming the fire they couldn't burn. The plane touched down on a quiet runway in Ottawa.
Sarah stepped out slowly. No cameras. No reporters. Just Michael waiting, holding a small boy with the brightest smile. Chabik. The moment Sarah saw her son, every wall inside her fell. She ran to him. He opened his arms. Mama. Her hands wrapped around him like they were afraid to let go. I missed you so much, she whispered. Me too, he said, burying his face in her neck. Uncle Michael said you were saving other girls. Sarah kissed his forehead. And I came back, so I could raise the best boy in the world. Later that night, in their small apartment, Sarah sat by the window, watching the snow fall. She held her son's hand and whispered, I lost my childhood. But I won yours. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she was surviving. She was finally living. 3 months later, Michael launched a new initiative. The Unspoken Sons Project, a mental health and mentorship program for boys raised without love, protection, or fathers. We talk so much about girls, he said during the press launch. But no one asks the question, who raised the men who become monsters? The project trained young boys in empathy, respect, consent, communication. Sarah was the guest speaker at the opening event. She stood before a hall of 12-year-old boys and said, Your strength is not in your fists. It's in your heart, and how you protect others. That night, Sarah and Michael sat under the stars. He looked at her and asked gently, Do you ever wish we were just two people who met, without all this history? She smiled. Sometimes. But maybe we were never meant to love each other romantically. Maybe we were meant to be the family we both never had. Michael nodded. And in that silence, they understood. A brown envelope arrived one rainy morning. Canadian postmark. Inside, a letter. From Joel. Written from prison in Nigeria. Sarah hesitated. Then read. My daughter Sarah. I'm sick now. They say it may be cancer. I don't write this to ask for pity. I write because I saw your face in a newspaper here, and I cried. I see what you've become. And I know I can't take credit. I was a weak man. A greedy man. A father in blood, but not in heart. If you never reply, I understand. But if this reaches you, please know. You were never livestock. You were light. And I was blind. Sarah folded the letter. She said nothing for a while. Then tore a sheet from her diary and wrote, "Thank you. I forgave you long ago. But now, I release you." She sent it back. Not to bring him peace, but to end the chapter with power. 10 years later, Sarah returned to Nigeria quietly. No press. No politics. Just one mission. To visit the school her foundation built in Amaife, the village that once sold her for 5 cows. Children ran barefoot across the schoolyard. Laughter. Learning. Life. A mural on the school wall showed a girl wearing a red scarf, breaking chains with her hands. Above it were the words, "You cannot sell destiny." Sarah stood in front of it, silent. Then one little girl ran to her, handing her a flower. "Auntie Sarah, is it true they tried to sell you before?" Sarah knelt. "Yes. But God bought me back." She turned. Looked at the mango tree where she once watched 5 cows tied beside her. Now, under that same tree a reading bench had been built for girls. The red soil was still there. But now, it no longer stained her. Sarah stands beneath the tree, holding her red scarf in her hand. She looks into the camera and says, "To every girl they tried to bury, you were never a seed. You were fire. And now, it's your turn to burn through the darkness." Thank you for watching African Tales by Ijele. Like, share and comment. And tell me where you are watching from. See you in my next video.